All right, I want to welcome everybody in to the Fifth Dimension podcast with me, Evan McDermott. For this episode, I was joined by my brother Kevin Ross, also known as the Soul Assassin. I want to say this is podcast number 4 between Kevin and I. 4, 5, 3, however many it was. This is a fun conversation. Him and I always enjoy catching up. And really, Kevin has done so many amazing things in his own life. Muay Thai world champion. Um, he's he's put in the work. Both physically, obviously, going through being a professional athlete, but internally as well. He's a man of true accountability and has a warrior mindset, and really embraces the stoic mindset. And I agree with him. And he mentions in this podcast, taking on that inward approach, stoicism is really the key for navigating these times that we are in. So, special thanks to Kevin for coming on the show. If you're a fan, be sure to subscribe, whatever platform you are on. YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it may be. Definitely click that subscribe button or the 5-star option. My new book, The Final Judgement, over in the back corner, up in the top right over there, top left. I don't know what side it's on for y'all. It's on my right. Um, Final Judgment is out now. You can buy it on Amazon, wherever you buy your books. Poetry collection, balancing personal reckoning and spiritual awakening. It's only $14.99. It's a great way to support this show. And let me know what you think of it. If you get it, read some of the poems in there. And there's a few guest poems in there as well. So it's not just me, but I appreciate y'all. And it's good to finally have that poetry book out. Be sure to pick up a copy. You can book a tarot reading with me if you want to. Have a new format that I just came up with and really have been incorporating for a while, about the hero's journey and doing a hero's journey format and looking at the different aspects in your own life and how you are embarking upon your own hero's journey. And so if you want to do that live or as a written report, the options to do so are in the episode show notes below. Be sure to subscribe to my Substack as well, mcdermott.substack.com. Be notified of every podcast, every poem, every article, whatever it may be, mcdermott.substack.com. Free to do so, and there's a paid subscription option as well. Without further ado, let's jump into the podcast. Kevin Ross. Enjoy. All right. Everybody, welcome into the Fifth Dimension podcast. I am joined once again by Kevin Ross. I don't know what podcast the number we've done now. Maybe 4, 3, 4, something like that. But
Yeah.
always a pleasure, man. It's been a couple of years since the last one, so it's good to be able to
Yeah.
chat again, bro.
Yeah, man. Good to talk to you.
So what's kind of asked this before, but how's the life been treating you? I know you're kind of living the ranch life,
Yeah.
out in nature, doing your thing. I mean,
Yeah.
how's everything? What's been your focus nowadays? What's things been looking like?
Um, yeah, it's obviously a completely different way of life and mentality and perspective coming from living in big cities, like growing up in Vegas to now
Hmm.
being in the middle of nowhere, essentially, in comparison
Hmm.
to that. It's actually what I prefer. I've always been someone that loved to be in nature and away from the world and didn't really like being in cities and stuff like that, but that just came with the territory of what I was doing, and
Hmm.
there wasn't really a way around it. You
Yeah.
gotta take what you can with the lifestyle and the things that you're trying to do. So it's been nice for me. It's been wonderful to be completely separated from that craziness of the world, particularly now at
Yeah.
this time in the world's history and everything. It really just the timing of it all couldn't have been any better. Where my career, retirement, and then the transition from that to go from that to this, and with everything going on in the world, it was just really couldn't ask for anything more.
It's
It's great.
much more peaceful, I'd imagine,
Yeah,
you know?
so it's nice, man. I mean, I could use even more peace than this, but this is a good it's a good balance of a little bit of both. I still get to be active and train and everything, whereas if I was living in the woods by
Hmm.
myself or isolated, then that wouldn't be happening.
That's fair. Yeah, I think there's a certain level of solitude that you can have, right? I think kind of
Yeah,
where you're at, it's
yeah.
so the solitude is still nice, but it's not like because I've lived in Boston, for example. I've been in the big cities too, and there's a big difference when you're
Oh
living
yeah.
in that type of environment, man. It's absolutely chaotic. I can't imagine right now. I mean, because you're right, living in the city even now, almost
Mhm.
2025,
Yeah.
even comparatively probably to 5 years ago, like
Oh yeah.
oh my
Oh, yeah.
goodness, the shifts that are taking place is unbelievable. But you ever,
Yeah, I
yeah,
was in San Diego last year,
yeah.
end of last year, and just going back there after it had only been probably a year
Hmm.
or so, but also I was out here and then seeing the difference between the two was drastic, man. I was like, get me out of here. And
Well, and I think once you get a taste of that peaceful and quiet life too, all of the
yeah,
noise and the chaos is even more amplified on
for
top of how
sure.
those cities are changing and how
Oh yeah.
there's just so much more chaos embroiled within them. And it's kind of, I think there was kind of like, especially with certain cities, LA, there's been a lot of stuff that's been out in the open, like homelessness and things of like that nature and
Yeah.
open drug use for a while, right? And
Um,
I've spent a lot of time in LA. And so, but even in other cities, man, I noticed the last time I was in Boston, and I'll be going back in the very near future, but the last time I was there was 2021. And it
uh,
had only been about 2 years prior to being there. But I noticed the second I got off the plane and I was like in downtown and I was going through because I got off the plane, went onto the subway right away, like the MBTA, like on public transit. Massive difference just in terms of what the vibe was. I could just feel it and see it. And I'm like, wow, this is not what I remember. And dude, that was 3 years ago.
yeah.
So I can
Yeah,
only imagine what it's looking like right now. But
it's pretty wild. San Diego was a big one for me because they had done such a good job of cleaning that place up over the last, say, decade.
mhm.
Like in a, I mean, downtown was beautiful, and all these they really cleaned that place up. But then over the last 3, 4 years, it just nosedived into the ground. I mean, it's brutal, man. It's heartbreaking, actually. You see something such a beautiful place,
Mm,
like San Diego is gorgeous, and
yeah,
so nice, and it's just destroyed in a lot of ways. It's heartbreaking.
that's sad. 'Cause the last time I was in San Diego was I want to say 2019. So I would probably be in for a little bit of a shell shock then if I went
Yeah,
back because I
yeah,
love San Diego.
I know, and I mean that was a place I thought I was gonna end up.
Mm,
Um, After my career was over and everything. I was thinking that's where I was gonna be.
yeah, I
And
was gonna say.
yeah, after the way everything was going, I was like, no, this ain't gonna be it. So
Do you think
complete.
like I mean because I'm with you where I love Southern California for example in terms of the natural beauty in the
Yeah,
weather and even a lot of elements of the culture I really do vibe with like
yeah.
there's a big art scene there's a bit music scene there's just the vibes of it I've always really been drawn there and I lived for it was probably 7 or 8 months in Orange County but then
Mhm.
once the whole pandemic started in 2020. I lost my job, couldn't afford it anymore. I was like, okay, I
Yeah.
need to go back. I need to go back home. This ain't gonna work no more.
Uh,
But I was living out there for a while, and I love it. Do you? And there's still a part of me that's like in terms of the natural beauty, like it would probably be one of my favorite places in this whole country, right? And I almost
uh,
wonder if it's like because of how beautiful it is, because of how resonant it is, if it is like just a deliberate destruction of those places, of a place like that. Because
yeah, I mean, California is such a huge mecca for the population in terms of people wanting to live there, people wanting to
Mhm.
go there. It's such a beautiful place. I mean, California in general is
Yeah.
gorgeous by the ocean and everything. I love the ocean. I love nature, but the ocean and the mountains, I
Hmm.
just, I think for me, it's something that just connects me back to the earth, really, when
Mm.
you're when you can hear it, when you're in it, when you can smell it. Yeah, it's hard for me when I'm in a place like Vegas or something where there's just nothing. Nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get out of the city and go to the mountains and stuff, but not when it's just in your face all the time. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's sad that those places are getting destroyed, and yeah, you can see why, because
Mm.
that's the place people want to be.
Right, exactly. Well, I almost wonder too, like it feels like if you were to look at the map, right? You have sort of a lot of the things we're seeing take place, like it's on both coasts, right? You have
Yeah.
all along
Yeah.
California and the Washingtons and Oregons, but like you look at New York City too, you look at Boston, you look at some of these bigger cities, DC, like a lot of this, I feel like garbage that's going on in our world, like it starts in those big cities, but I almost
Uh,
wonder if it's gonna flood itself, like starts it kind of go inward, right? And,
yeah.
like so, us the Midwest and all these other places where there's nothing, maybe that's gonna be the last I don't know, the last
Yeah.
untouched places in this country by some of
Yeah.
some of
They're
these
gonna,
ideologies, but
yeah, they're like squeezing from the outside in.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was a pretty eye-opening thing during the lockdowns and the everything that was going on. Was we were in Hermosa Beach,
Mhm.
basically LA. So LA and New York were just the hub of like the worst aspects of the whole
Mhm.
thing. And then moved out of Hermosa and went on a road trip for like 2 months across the country, and it was crazy to see the difference the farther you got from the coast or the farther you got from California.
Mhm.
And it was, just normal people and not really crazy about everything, and didn't fall into that mentality that everyone did so easily, manipulated and steered and angered and driven to have certain perspectives, whatever that perspective may be. And you just really see that the majority of the country, just like the majority of the world, most people are really in the middle there with all issues. Very,
Mhm.
very few people are on that extreme end that we all get driven by, yet the media and all you see, all you hear is that. And if
Mhm.
that's all your perception is, you assume that's how everybody is,
Mhm.
because I mean, we can only base our reality of what we experience. So
Yeah.
you think that's what reality is. And if you're not willing to explore or even think about it from a different perspective, you see why it's so easy to control people like that. Because it's if you don't know any better, you don't know any better. So what do
Mhm.
you what do you expect people to do? You can't, and you also can't necessarily blame people either, because it's understandable why why so many people were so easily manipulated and given perspectives on things, because that's all they saw, that's all they knew, that's all they felt. And then you're just bombarded with this information and this fear, and it forces you to, it's that fight or flight response, and most people aren't comfortable being
Mhm.
uncomfortable, so that you're always going to be driven towards safety, whatever that safety is. And unfortunately, safety is the reason we continually lose our rights and things get taken away, because they get put in this it's better, safer perspective. But in the long run, this is where we're at now.
100%. Well, do you think people have learned from that, or are they just going to fall right back into the
No.
safety trap?
No, I think the history of humanity shows you that won't change, because
Yeah.
I would say the only thing that would ever change that is if we are educated earlier on in our lives
Yeah.
to not be that way, and to deal with adversity and to deal with uncomfortable situations, and to push ourselves and to think for ourselves. But we're not. So we're brought up in this system which was very much designed for us to be manipulated and controlled the way that we are, although it doesn't feel that way unless you look at it
Mm,
objectively from the outside. And it makes a lot more sense when you look at it through that lens. Like, why are schools the way they are? Why is our education system the way it is? Why is our workforce the way that it is? And then you can look back now and say, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But still, how many people are aware of that? And even the ones that are, what are you going to do about it?
mm.
You
Right.
know?
What can we do about it? I guess.
Yeah, everything is, and unfortunately, everything in order to grow, in order to be stronger, in order to be smarter, it's a slow, painful process, and it gets frustrating, and that's what causes people to lash out and to fight each other and do these things because you just want it to be fixed now. You
Hmm.
want people to be smart now, but yet we often fail to realize that both sides of this spectrum are bad, both extremes are bad. Every side is bad if you take it to the extreme, but
Hmm.
when you see the bad of one side, it's very easy to start going the other direction, not realizing that the other side of that is just as bad.
Hmm.
And
100%.
so and that's where this flip-flop of ideologies and politics and everything else like that continues inevitably because of that pendulum that always swings to the other side.
Definitely,
Because we
man.
got to fight against this, and when we fight against this, we create another bad thing, another bad thing, and each time we're slowly being squeezed, 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 and then we're like, bam, now you're right where we wanted you because we were controlling both sides.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, it goes to show you like that spectrum you have. And a lot of times it's depicted as linear, whether it's left versus right or a lot of these dichotomies. I think it's an illusion that it's even linear and
Oh
it's circular in a sense, you know? You go
yeah,
enough one way, you're going to end up in the exact same spot if you go far enough in the other way because
yeah,
it's not one linear side where if you go over this side, it's far away from here. No, they meet up here,
they
you know?
connect, they connect. Yeah, yeah. So it's like stuff like that we don't certainly don't think about and aren't educated in
Mhm.
those um the process of that, how it is all connected in a circular way, and how it's all part of it's that mentality is what it is behind all these things. It's not a We think it's like this good versus evil side where it's about being manipulated and controlled even on positive things. And unfortunately, it can be much easier to control people with positive things
Mm,
because once you start showing them what the opposite side is, it's very easy to start pushing you in this direction. And once you start going in that direction where you think it's a good thing, you stop asking questions and you stop looking at things and you stop taking in the other perspective, because we all have a variety of perspectives and reasons we feel the way we do about things. It's not like here's good people, here's bad people. Everyone is somewhere in a mix of all these different aspects of life. But
mm,
we isolate a certain issue and then say, oh, because you don't agree with me, then that you're a piece of shit.
yeah. Well, and at the end of the day, I people don't seem to realize, like, if you look at people on both sides of these spectrums, at the end of the day, what do we all want? It's going to be a very similar answer.
Oh,
So
yeah.
there's way more similarities and commonalities that we have with one another. So where these divisive issues come up and where we do demonize somebody who's on the left or who's on the right or believes in this, believes in that, right? Like we kind of want the same thing at the end of the day. So how do we actually find common ground, what the truth actually is, into where we can, where can we agree upon that are what are our inalienable fundamental rights that we cannot trample upon, right? Like
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
start there. What is it?
Yeah.
What is what is the value of a human being? Like
Right.
at the end of the day, if we take an objective approach on that, we're probably going to have a very similar answer.
Yeah.
Let's not get caught up in the media saying
Yeah.
this is hate speech, this is that. Let's actually just listen to one another.
Yeah.
Let's have conversations. And what's interesting is I think one-on-one individual interactions, and I'm sure you've seen this too, like people are generally pretty open for the most part. I mean, you have people that get very defensive and don't want to hear out what you have to say, but that's kind of the extreme, what you were talking about earlier, that drives the narrative.
Yeah.
I find most people I talk to, even if we have a political, we're on different sides of the spectrum, right? Or perceived spectrum. We still have a lot more in common, like than most things. I'm not finding much difficulty, at least within my own community and the people I'm talking to,
Yeah.
of having open conversations and trying to hear each other out. So sometimes I don't know if the division is online and it's the collective mentality that we're seeing, and like the mob mentality takes place in like this illusionary town square online, or what? Because a lot of the one-on-one conversations I get to have, they seem to they're trending towards positive, at least
Yeah.
for the most part, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that certainly makes it tough because individually you can have these conversations, you can have these debates with people and even arguments that stay civilized. But as soon as you group people together, particularly when you do it online or on TV or movie, whatever, you take out that rational approach to things, and we just get lost in this chaos. I can't remember whose quote this was. He said something along the lines of, I don't remember if he used the word psychosis or
mm,
what. He said psychosis in individuals is rare, but in groups, ideologies, and something else, it's the rule.
mm, yep,
Because
definitely.
as soon as you group people together, you've lost um, the individuality, and we automatically go back to that tribalism with things, and so much of that is based in just our survival as a species. So how do you take that out of there?
Mm,
I don't think you have to take it out of there, but I think you have to make us people aware of it.
yeah.
Like there's a reason we're driven towards groupthink, and why
Mm,
we want to be part of the norm, whatever the norm may be at the time. And we don't want to be isolated. We don't want to stand alone because survival depends on being in groups.
hmm
But it's very easy to get lost and caught up in that, because particularly when you are going from a place of I need to keep my job, I need to keep my family, I need to stay safe, I need to stay alive. Like how can you can't blame people for that.
right.
I think the more that we all understand that and try to approach things with that perspective, it it can help find that middle ground, at least to where there can be a conversation.
Right.
As soon as people start throwing themselves on one side or the other, like I don't care what side it is, I don't want to be on anybody's side.
Right.
Because I've yet to see a good side in the history of the world. Everyone that says they're good or that they're on the right side very quickly becomes the wrong side after a certain amount of time, because you feel justified in what you're doing. And that's a dangerous place to be, when you feel justified in whatever your actions are.
Absolutely. Well, and there's I think a sense of superiority that comes over once you get
Right.
to that point. And the
Yeah.
second, it's interesting because when I was looking back at the last couple of years too, that was something I tried to be very mindful of, because it's like, okay, well, there's all these people talking about like, let's say a Nuremberg 2.0, right? Which maybe in itself, is that a bad thing? Maybe not. There needs to be some accountability for the wrongs of the last several years, right? Where people
Yeah.
were losing their jobs, and there was people, forced into different medical procedures. And I won't use a trigger word on the podcast because I don't need to get another YouTube strike.
Sure.
But so there does need to be a level of accountability. But at what point does a new Nuremberg 2.0 just you're hanging people in the streets for disagreement and for I don't know, let's just say somebody in your community who was persuaded into the thinking of, oh, maybe we should mandate this for that, right? Maybe we should, at what point do we have accountability for actions versus forgiveness in the and
Yeah.
it's such a delicate balance to try and find because you want to hold people accountable and you want
Yeah.
people to own their wrongs, but at some point, what are you just cleansing the people who think differently? then it's
Yeah.
something you really need to. I don't know if people give enough thought to that when looking at accountability, when looking at how do we actually approach these issues moving forward, because
Yeah.
there isn't a clear line necessarily, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Oh, not at all. And it unfortunately it seems so easy and so clear cut, yet that is also what gets us right back in the same position you started in.
Hmm.
So as soon as I'm like demonizing anyone that did this, we're like, well, it's a spectrum, first off. So you
Hmm.
can't just chuck everyone out into the gulags, and then it's like, where do you draw that line as well?
Mm.
You, because you went along with it, because you actually did this thing, because you were at the top, and you can work your way all the way up and say, at what level did people understand what they were doing as opposed to uh, doing their job, following orders, and at what level were the people that were giving these orders understanding of what they were actually doing, as opposed to they were doing this one little piece of this giant puzzle, which is typically how these things tend to go. Is uh, everyone has plausible deniability
Hmm.
because no one actually knows all of the truth. They know what they're told in that piece. And if that piece is all that they know, that seems justifiable and right because I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do with my job. But you put
Hmm.
all those jobs together and then it becomes this dictatorship, yet who's in control of that? And often the people that we want to lynch aren't even the ones who were even really doing it.
Right. It's like the train operator in the Nazi camps, right? That same type of story. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm just working the trains. I don't know where they go, right?
Yeah.
So it's
And
just,
then that's also that slippery slope of how these things happen is because everyone is like, well, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. It's not that bad.
mhm.
I'm just doing my job. I'm just following orders and not asking questions, or I have to do it because of X, Y, and Z. And yet you put enough of those pieces together, and that contributes to really awful things.
Right, exactly. And I think we could all take a step back and kind of look, how is our own programming, our own conditioning, our own circumstances? Like, I don't know, if I were the train operator in Nazi Germany and I was just trying to provide for my family or whatnot, maybe if I don't even fully agree with the Nazi party and all of this stuff, but like I got a family to feed. I got to take care of my kids. Like,
Yeah.
I guarantee you 99 out of 100 people in that circumstance are going to do the exact same thing, especially if they're not seeing the bigger picture or they're not aware of the full evil that something is playing into. And it kind of mentions what we were talking about earlier. Like it really just feels like when your focus, and this is how I think they get people, when your focus is on survival and when your focus is on getting enough food on the table, taking care of yourself, taking care of your family, it's very easy to overlook a lot of these things and to not
Yeah.
even pay full attention because that can't be your priority. It's like you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs at the very baseline, security, shelter, food,
Yeah.
and it doesn't when you start worrying about, I don't know, you're looking at taking down systems and all of this stuff and you're looking at the bigger picture, like you kind of have to have your baseline, not in all cases. I mean, there's people who do extraordinary things from places of extreme despair, of course, but you kind of need to have your baseline needs met, not
Yeah.
just physically, but also psychologically and spiritually a lot of times too, to even
Hmm.
start looking into these bigger pictures and seeing how your one action might play into the larger scale of things, right? So
Yeah.
it's not as simple as just, oh, take the accountability. But yeah, take accountability, but mm, if you're worried about food on the table,
Yeah.
I get the priority, you know?
For sure. For sure. Yeah.
So,
That's what makes it so tricky and again so easy to control people because you put that need or that fear into them.
yeah,
You can't think about anything else. You can't do anything else because you're just trying to take care of I'm just trying to survive today.
yeah,
Like I can't think about this giant picture or how this relates or contributes to that. I'm just trying to get through this day. That's it.
yeah.
You know, like I
Exactly.
wish I had time to think about all these other things, but I don't.
And
So
if operating the train in Nazi Germany puts food on the table for my family, well, at least for today, that's probably the better option. For
yeah,
in that case, for a lot, that's what people are going to think. And is that the right thing to do? I don't know. I don't think there's a yes or no on that.
yeah,
I can't fault people for choosing to prioritize their families and choosing security and choosing what feels safe because I think a lot of 9 times out of 10, that's what everybody's going to choose. That's what it's our baseline needs. So I don't know.
yeah.
I don't think that need for safety is ever going to go by the wayside. And as long as governments and the governments sometimes people like to, like, let's say, look at the current administration in the White House, right? They like to talk, and if you look at Joe Biden at an individual level, the dude is totally like, I don't know. I feel kind of bad for him. Like I think he's totally lost in in outer space or something.
Mhm.
Mentally probably not fully there. So maybe there's a level of incompetence, right? But I tend to think a lot of the perceived incompetence of government is actually more of it's pretty well thought out in a sense where
Oh,
these people know what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. They know how to target psychological needs. They know how to, well, what is it that a human being on an individual level needs. They understand the psychology on how to manipulate and how to control.
yeah.
So we're not dealing with just total idiots.
Yeah.
So which is why when something happens in the future, it's going to be very well crafted in the
Yeah.
same sense that the pandemic was, in the same sense of how the politics and the elections always end up so divisive, always end up being
Yeah.
so draining and
Yeah.
tribal, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, so if we're looking at the bigger picture, I don't see a change in that way at all, actually. And
No,
that I think
no.
that totalitarian, I think I heard David Icke call it the totalitarian tiptoe, where you just slowly but surely,
Yeah.
you make it, it makes its way. And
Yeah. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, this shit has been going on forever. And
seriously.
each time you just inch a little bit closer to that line,
Hmm.
yet the entire time you make sure enough people feel like it's going their way
Hmm.
a little bit.
Yep.
Whereas if everyone in the country felt like it wasn't going their way, that then you're talking about some crazy shit happening. But each time it's one side feels a little bit better, then the other side feels a little bit better, and then each time we're squeezing a little bit more, and then you get people, you give people that hope of this person's going to change it. This this election, we're gonna steer things in the right way. And I don't want to say people shouldn't feel that way, but you should also look back through history and see how this has always been the case. Each
Hmm.
time there's some event, some chaos, some situation that gets people desperate and pointing fingers and this person's going to fix it or this is the direction we need to go and then we're just like back and forth and then we're
Every
stuck.
time.
So yeah, it's such a complex thing because it's so easy to point those fingers at a group or a person or a political party, all that. And that might very well be true to a degree, but it's a lot larger
Yeah. Much more
picture
complex.
there.
Much.
Super complex, super complex. And there's so many of these factors where for me, like I look back on the lockdowns and everything, and that should have been an eye-opening thing for people to one, take better care of their mental and physical health.
Mhm.
Like, like if that didn't become a priority for you, then you're just so easily manipulated and controlled through fear, through all of these different avenues, and we're constantly giving our power over to these people and these organizations which don't have our best interest in mind.
Mhm.
So the more dependent people can be on themselves and know that they can handle themselves individually, then on a small scale in a community, and then work your way up, then that makes the higher ups irrelevant. But we're constantly handing over our our rights, our abilities, our power. We constantly give it away. Like they didn't fucking take it. We're giving it away all the time because we're not taking accountability in the things that we have control over. And that's I would say, the psychology of human beings. We're always handing over these things that we have control over, or not holding ourselves accountable to the things we do have control over.
Mhm.
And it seems so much easier to, these people will do it. This thing will do it. This drug will do it. This whatever. And you could take that across the board of every aspect that we have in life. Is we do that with everything.
Yeah.
We do everything. It's not just government. We do it in our daily lives, with our food, with our education, with our medicine. And is that their fault or our fault?
Mm. Definitely our fault. 100%
It's
our fault.
certainly our fault, but it's so easy to say, well, if they weren't doing that, then we wouldn't be this way. Well, there's both. There's both.
Mm.
There's two sides of accountability. And if we aren't willing to be accountable in the things that we do have control over, then this will never end. This will go
Right.
on forever. And I would say that mentality is the biggest reason that things don't change, is because human nature is that way to a degree, because of the tribalism and the group mentality that comes with survival. So all of these things are connected into this seemingly impossible spiral to get out of. Because
Yeah.
how do you change that if it's in your DNA to think this way and to be inclined to these things? Like, we need to have a complete shift in our mentality and our outlook and our approach to life. It's always been this uh, inward looking outward instead of looking inward
Hmm.
with everything. We're always looking out to space.
Yeah.
We're always looking out to the future. We don't want to look inside, like go deeper and deeper. Like, how much have we explored externally, yet how little have we explored internally? Almost,
That's
almost, almost nothing, like zero,
seriously.
which is crazy.
That's the I would say unexplored terrain in the most part.
Yeah,
Like it's a beautiful journey to go on. And you know what's
yeah,
interesting? Something I was thinking when you were saying that is it feels like our own lack of accountability, like you were talking about. And I like how you said accountability is a two-way street in this sense, but
yeah.
our own lack of accountability on these things, I feel like it almost gives the systems a justification of saying, look at these people. They aren't taking care of themselves. Look at
Oh
how
yeah,
clearly they need us.
they
Like,
need.
you know, they need
Yeah,
us. Look.
that's I think that's what's important for all of us too, is to understand. If you think about an adult that's in charge of a bunch of kids in kindergarten, like,
Mhm.
you're gonna lock these little bastards up. Be like, if I let them go, they're gonna destroy themselves. They're gonna
Yeah.
just kill themselves. So I have to control them, obviously. But where's the line that you draw there, where you're imprisoning them,
Hmm.
or you're letting them be free to a degree where they can learn and grow? And I would say that's the dilemma with all relationships when it comes to parents, bosses, people in authority. Any position of authority, is where is that balance of control and freedom? Because you can't have total freedom,
Hmm.
and you don't want total control either. So that's a difficult balance to have. And just like any balances, you have to be aware of it constantly because it's so easy to start going one direction or the other, or just
Hmm.
saying fuck it and just like letting go.
You're right.
All of life is that balance of both extremes, and you're trying to find that middle ground. Um, and that understanding that both sides are equally negative,
Hmm. Right.
because as you said, it's circular, so you can keep going that direction, but eventually it's going to hit back to that negative side, and it's going to be a circle. And that I think that understanding would be so important for all of us, because it's so easy to look at something in our lives, something we believe in, something we do, and say this is a good thing. But
Mm.
yeah, to a degree,
To a degree, always
to
to
a
a
degree,
degree. In
to a degree.
excess will poison you, I think, in any aspect, regardless of where it is in your life, for the most part,
Yeah,
It's
that's hard. I don't, it seems counterintuitive for us to understand, because you think a good thing, how can a good thing be bad?
mhm. Right. Exactly. Well, too much of anything. If you're, so you put all your eggs in the basket of good, whatever it is, maybe you're neglecting other aspects of your life that need attention. Where hey, maybe I'm neglecting my family because I'm so focused on this, or I'm so focused on making money, or doing this, or doing that. Right? It's
Yeah.
it's very there's no pro. The thing about it is there's no like one correct exact way to live life and find the exact route and the exact path. And these are exactly what my priorities need to be. Like I could list off my own priorities and all right, maybe they work for me, but they're not going to work for you necessarily, and they're not going to work for the person listening to this, and then this part, like it's all different, right? Everybody has their own unique circumstances, and what's interesting, coming back to what you're talking about, kind of the dependency we have, even if like raising kids, for example, and I don't necessarily view the system or the government as a parent, but I think in a lot of ways, and this is at least for me personally, I don't view them as my parent. They don't have authority over me. Like I'm
Mm.
certain I still play, obviously I have to play the game in certain ways. And, there's no true, I don't know if there's a true exit like people want there to be. There is maybe on a mentality level, but
Yeah.
we got to play the game. But regardless, if there are a parent, what's the role of a parent? It's to raise and to grow. And like, if let's say we look at our own dependencies and ways that we're attached to the system, maybe, okay, I have these dependencies. There's a level of acknowledgement we can have. The role of the parent would be to, okay, we learn and we grow, but at some point, this kid's an adult, right? Let
Uh-huh.
them go. They're gonna need to fend for themselves. If I open up the doors when they're in kindergarten, well, yeah, they're probably gonna go get eaten by a mountain lion or something. Like, they have no idea what they're doing. Like it's so if our they can kind of look at where we are. I think I read the average psychological age is 12 years old for adults in the
Mm.
world. Like the average psychological age, they measured it out, and it's about 12. So if we have a 12-year-old, yeah, they want to be free. There's a certain level of dependency that people still have. So I think maybe acknowledging where the dependencies are and kind of, because there is no overnight solution unless you go and like gigafry your brain on ayahuasca or something, which might work for some. That might work. I don't know. Going with the
Yeah.
right intention, it would be healing. It would help, but um, people look for that instant, quick fix gratification solution. And when it comes to our own psychological dependencies and our own conditioned programming, those things are conditioned. It's not
Yeah.
unless you really open up the neural pathways and through a psychedelic experience or a deep, sometimes things do change in an instant. You have you have a revelation, you have those
Yeah.
like those moments, sure, but for the most part, it's a process,
Yeah.
And when we're looking at the collective, what's going on a collective level in the chaos of the world, it's a process.
Yeah.
We're not over, and I don't even know if there is an overturning of it.
Yeah.
There's a shift, but
Yeah.
shifts take time, you know?
Yeah. It's a direction, a course correction, because the process is the same no matter which direction you're going.
Mm.
You can't get there quickly.
Yeah.
It is slow and it's progressive, and we constantly have choices to make to start to steer things in a different direction. And how many of us are holding ourselves accountable to that direction, where we can look at the world and say, oh, it's this, it's that. But are we aren't, if we're not doing that individually, how do we expect that to happen collectively?
Right.
But we're always looking at the collective as the problem. These people, this political party, this race, this country, they're the problem. We need to look internally. I mean, a great exercise for anybody is anytime you are condemning someone else, or viewing something else as bad, is what things in my own life are similar to that, and how do I change that?
Mm.
Because I can't expect other people to change if I'm not willing to change myself.
Yeah,
So
100%.
we're constantly casting stones at everyone else, but not holding ourselves accountable to that same thing, that same process and perspective. So if we would individually hold ourselves under the microscope just as much as we're holding other people,
Mm.
we might things might start to shift, but that's probably a tough sell.
It is a tough sell. Well, most people don't want to sit with themselves, which is the issue. I mean, a good example, I this point really honed in for me. I did I don't know if I ever told you about this or not. I did the 10-day like silent meditation retreat. It was
Yeah,
about
you
the
told me you were gonna do it, but you didn't tell me about it.
Yeah, I did it. It was about this time last year that I did it. I think I got off like it was like the first week of October of last year. So it's about a year ago now. But I remember doing that. And you're sitting with yourself for 10 days straight. And like there's no talking, there's no cell phones, there's nothing. Like I remember literally, I think it must have been like day 3 or day 4 of the trip, was the whole what was when Israel like got bombed or whatever last year in October when they had the big event between Palestine and
Um,
Israel. I didn't know about that until at least a week after. Like I remember I talked to my mom on the phone and she's at when I got out and she's like, "Yeah, we're at World War III." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, I guess the world is blowing it. But I had no idea. It was like at least a week after. So it was
uh,
actually kind of nice to like look at that event a week after it happened with more objectivity and not be caught up
yeah,
in the emotional storm. That's kind of
yeah,
besides the point. But I remember the biggest thing people would say to me when I would s bring up that experience, they'd say, "Oh, I couldn't sit with myself that long. Oh, I couldn't stand doing that. I could not sit in my own head for 10 days straight. There's no way." And
yeah,
and when people tell me that, I'm like, well, at least you're honest with yourself. I'm not going to tell you whether or not you can, but if that's if that's what you're saying, then yeah, you probably can't. It wouldn't
yeah.
surprise me. Now,
Well, that'd say that's probably a huge problem in our society, in the world in general, is that people can't do that, and we're constantly being fed stuff that allows us not to do that.
mhm,
Our phones, our TVs, the media, everything, everything. And it's not, I wouldn't even want to blame technology for that, because you could just as easily do that with just about anything.
yeah,
Although that certainly makes it easier
mhm,
and more of a accepted accepted drug, essentially, is what we're doing. I don't think maybe if we started to look at all these things as drugs and put them in that perspective, maybe it would change things a little bit.
right,
Instead of maybe not putting things in a good or bad drug, it's just a drug. What you do with it can be good or bad,
mhm,
which is, I think, how all drugs should be viewed, because it's really just about what you do with something. Food can be deadly, air can be deadly, everything can be deadly if you take it a certain direction. So you want to isolate certain things because they can be abused. Well, everything can be abused, so we should probably outlaw everything.
For
And
your
that's
safety.
that is why we're controlling the population because people are reckless with their drugs, and freedom is a drug, and you can be dangerous and reckless.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Got to keep us safe. That's all we need. Safety, safety, safety.
Yeah.
Please protect me from myself and my own inability to hone in freedom and not be reckless with it.
Yeah.
But Kevin, I think you'd actually do really well on a 10-day silent meditation retreat. Yeah, I don't
Oh
know if
yeah,
you
I would that'd be something I would love to do. I remember I saw this documentary. You know Aubrey Marcus is?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he did a I can't remember how many days it was, but it was dark therapy.
Mm,
So completely black room, eyes, ears. So you can't hear anything, you can't see anything, you can't experience anything. I mean, they give them food, obviously, and
hmm
and stuff, but you're completely locked in the darkness and can't hear anything. And he did that for a couple days. And I remember when they videoed him when they opened his eyes up for the first time, and he just starts like bawling
mm,
because of what that how beautiful that must be to see that, you know.
yeah.
That I think that would be very cool too. And I think about that with a lot of things. Just that concept of fasting from different aspects of life that we get so used to, whether that be sound or vision or food or
hmm
uh, social media, all these things. I try to take little breaks from here from time to time so it's not a habitual thing in my life, so that there is that separation
Yeah.
and you don't become so um, dependent on these things subconsciously. You don't even realize it.
Yeah.
Most people will lose their fucking minds if you took their phone away for 10 minutes.
Right.
Let alone a day. And the problem is we're all developing these addictions that we have no idea that we're developing.
Yeah. Ex
Even worse in the pharmaceutical field, you know, you're giving people all these anxiety medicines. They don't realize they're all junkies because if you took that shit away, and Gina and I were actually talking about this like right when the lockdowns and everything that are happening. Like, imagine what's going to happen when they take that drug away from people.
mm,
It's going to be fucking the end of the humans because people are going to lose their fucking minds. And the percentage of people that are on these drugs is crazy. And children
right.
and adults. And they have no idea how dependent they are on these things,
Yeah.
like
Exactly.
physically dependent, mentally dependent. And if you took that away, I mean, it's like taking heroin away from people.
Right. Exactly. Well, I don't think
And
people even realize it's at that level.
not, which makes it worse.
Yeah.
It makes it worse because you feel like this isn't that.
hmm
This isn't heroin. Well, yeah, it's heroin.
Yeah.
It's very much heroin. It's
I was gonna
exactly what
say
it is.
something like Adderall or whatever, I mean, that's very
Yeah.
similar. I think a similar structure as like methamphetamines, for example,
Yeah,
right? It's like,
it's all the same compound. So essentially that's exactly what the whole world is addicted to, these drugs. And that's going to be I would say that would be something where when they really want to take something away from people,
mhm,
when they take that away, it's going to be bad.
right.
It's going to be
There's
bad. It's going to be worse than when they take away food or water or power.
No, seriously. Well, and a big issue is, and I've noticed, I don't think a lot of people realize, like a lot of those drugs, for example, they come from like China and they come from other countries. I think the number one exporter in the world for opium actually is North Korea, right? So I don't think we'll ever say that we get opium from North Korea, but of course that's coming in. That's somehow, some way, maybe even if that's more of black market type of opium, but they're the number one exporter of opium in the whole world, right? So, and
Yeah.
we get our pharmaceuticals. We don't produce those in America, right?
Yeah.
We get them from China, we get them from wherever else. So the
Yeah.
second you have a lot of people. are anti-globalism, for example, which I understand. I don't think globalism from a political sense is always the correct solution, right? We don't need a centralization of power necessarily, but people don't realize globalism, it brings them their drugs, it brings them certain foods, it brings them certain products, it brings them certain technologies, it brings them their cell phone, it brings them connection like the Zoom and
Yeah.
podcasts from all over the world, right? So
Oh,
there's
yeah.
certain aspects of the global perspective that allows for a global distribution of goods and trades and things of that nature.
For
So,
sure.
let's say we want to end globalism. Okay, let's say I snap my fingers and end globalism. There's going to be a lot of chaos. You're gonna not have a lot of things, which
It's gonna be a lot of shit you wish you still had. Well, that's that concept of we think we're gonna be fighting these things that are trying to take it from us. We are willingly handing over and walking ourselves into the gas chambers
mm,
all the time, all the time,
mm,
because it's convenient, because it's nice, because it feels good, because it's something we feel we need at the time. We're doing it.
yeah,
Nobody else is doing this to us. Nobody's taking this from us. We're giving it away willfully all the time, constantly. Every new advancement in technology and everything, you're we're at the very least made to believe that this is a positive thing,
yeah,
where progress is not always positive
hmm
because we're so fixated on that progression mindset that we don't view what comes with that progression or what we are giving away with that progression. There is always a trade-off, no matter what it is. There's a give and a take in everything that we do, but we get so fixated on the positives of something with the technology, the advancements, the look how good this thing is, look how many people's lives it saves. Like, well, yeah, but also there's
hmm
also that comes with everything, and it's not until it's too late that we look back and say, well, hey, maybe that was a bad idea, but now we're fucked.
100%. And that's usually how it goes. The,
Yeah.
maybe the it's interesting you bring up progress too, because like I think a lot of the things that are pushed in whether it's tech or um, regard across the board, a lot of the progressions we make as a society seem to very much, at least the ones that are pushed on a larger scale, very much fit the direction we're moving in. So I question a lot of the progress. Like, okay, is this really progress or is this just something it's the next step of the agenda, right? There's people who example in the past, there's a guy who made a couple people who have made water powered cars. What happens to them? Oh, they mysteriously die.
Yeah.
Oh no. Free energy, things of that nature. Oh
Yeah.
no.
Can't have
What a
that.
tragedy. They another one accidentally dies. Oh,
Oh,
terrible. You
and all
know.
his papers got burned up in his house.
Oh no, we'll never know what he did or how he figured that out, right? So when there's people making advancements that kind of go against the head of the beast here, well, we can't have
Yeah.
that. No, 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 no.
Yeah. So it's which advancements are we letting out?
Hmm
Because they're not going to be advancements that actually help humanity out in the long run. They're going to be advancements, at the very least, that can be used to enslave people, get people dependent on them,
hmm
take people's resources, nothing that's for the benefit of the people.
Yeah.
Rarely, rarely. And if there is, it's only because it's also coming with this giant shackle around their waist. So you're like, oh, look at this benefit that you're getting. You didn't have that before. But like, yeah, I also didn't have this giant weight on my
hmm
back at
hmm
the same time. So where's the trade-off there?
Exactly. Well, something I think about regularly is like the cannabis and tobacco industries and how I think they're going to take the exact same route. Because, you could look at the tobacco plant, for example, been being used for thousands of years, is very sacred in a lot of indigenous
Uh,
cultures. And like there's ways to use it where I think there can be a lot of health benefits and there's a medicine aspect. But Of course, the tobacco industry takes it over and adds all these chemicals and turns it into this harmful, terrible product where if you look
Yeah.
at tobacco plants in themselves, not all that bad. Right. I think down the line the cannabis industry is going to go the same route where,
Yeah.
they're already putting additives and
Yeah.
whatever and dyes and this and that into cannabis plants. And
Yeah.
the cannabis plant itself, I
Yeah.
think, has a lot of benefits. It's very positive, but
Mhm.
okay, now it's popping up all over the country, for example. You know, they're probably not advertising the fact that a lot of these are sprayed with pesticides and chemicals, and it's not like you're getting an all clean organic cannabis
Yeah.
plant when you go to the dispensary, and people
Yeah.
don't necessarily we don't seem to have the foresight on that. 30 years from now it'll come out,
Yeah.
oh no, I got this illness from cannabis because they were spraying it with, I don't know, let's just say glyphosate. I don't know if they're spraying it with glyphosate, but it's something along those lines, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
they don't seem to have that direct foresight of, okay, they're legalizing it, but how are they legalizing it? What are they
Yeah.
doing with it? Right?
What does that come with?
Right. And so
Yeah.
I foresight tends to be something that's not very common in a lot of
No,
ways
no.
as we're displaying.
Yeah, we're very short-sighted as a species, unfortunately. But
Seems to be the way it is. I don't know if there's I don't know if there's a solution to the lack of foresight when we're in a survival trap and when we're
yeah, yeah,
as sick and dependent as most of us are. I mean, could even look at the thing that I couldn't help but laugh at, but I think kind of aggravates me is, even with weight loss nowadays, you just take what is it, Ozempic? Is that here Ozempic?
yeah,
Whatever that drug is, go get Ozempic. You'll lose 100 pounds instead of
yeah.
just changing your diet or going to the
Yeah.
gym.
Well, again, and again, when you just like everything else, when you look at that, you can say there certainly are individuals who can benefit from this and
Right.
right. But then we just plaster it across the board for anyone that just wants to lose some weight.
Hmm.
And as instead of what does everything need to be started on? What can you do as the individual? Do everything you can as the individual, then you start to expand farther out. Now, what can I do with some help from another person? What can I do with some help from another drug, maybe? And you go down the line, but we jump to the end. We jump to surgery. We jump to medication. We jump to more control from the government. We jump to the end instead of taking the long, hard process of accountability being the major one
Hmm.
and then starting to move down towards that road. So we're constantly handing over our rights, our health, our mentality to these external things that aren't necessarily the best approach. Or
Yeah.
even looking at it in a way to where we can find out if that might be the best approach. We're just saying this is the best approach. Go get it.
Yeah. Exactly.
There's no other option. The other options don't work. It takes too long. You got better shit to do.
Prioritize your time and go work 80 hours a week for us and take your
Yeah.
Ozempic and you'll lose weight. You don't even have to go to the gym. You don't got to put in the work.
You're gonna need to pay for these bills, so you got to get back to work.
That's exactly right. You want to afford it? Here you go. Go to work, make it happen. Oh
Right.
boy.
So that psychology is what we need to change.
Hmm.
I think we often look at so many things that we want to fix, but what is the root cause of all these things?
Hmm.
It's our mentality, the way we look at things, the way that we process difficulties and emotions, and that comes from a slew of things from our upbringing, from family trauma, past, like it goes on forever. How do you fix stuff that you didn't even weren't even involved in?
Hmm.
There's a really good book you should check out. It's called It Didn't Start With You.
Okay.
It's all about generational trauma, basically. And when you really look at that and the like the science behind how trauma gets passed down from generation to generation, even over decades, you
Yeah.
know, you start to you start to lose hope on anything ever being fixed because, people are dealing with emotions that they don't even know about,
Hmm. Right.
from 100 years ago that happened to your ancestors that you didn't know about, but you have the remnants of that in your DNA, and you're dealing with these stressors and these responses to and triggers to things that you're not even aware of. Like we can barely deal with the stuff that we are aware of.
Hmm. Let
Now we
alone.
got now now you got to deal with shit that you weren't even alive for.
Oh man. Yeah, my great grandfather had trauma pain experience. That's mine now. Great.
I'm taking this over.
Well, I mean, but there's also kind of like to take on the accountability aspect of it and to kind of say, you know what? All right, maybe I'm gonna be the ancestor where I'm not passing all that shit down. I mean,
Sure.
don't get me wrong. I'm sure there will be things that I wanted to uproot, and you're never gonna be perfect. There's never gonna be a I am fully healed, right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's a self-limiting belief in a sense, but I think you kind of always have to continually be willing to go on the healing journey and unpack more and unpack more and
Yeah.
unpack more. But you can kind of say, all right, this stops with me. We're
Yeah.
not dealing with great Uncle Joe's trauma from 70 years ago. Like that
Yeah.
ain't mine.
Yeah.
I don't need to let it burden me in a sense. But it's difficult because it's not like you can sit there and have a conversation with your ancestors about what happened 100 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like I think recognizing the triggers and recognizing your own behavior is kind of the first course of action. And like,
Yeah, for
is this
sure.
is this the way I want to be showing
Yeah.
up? Is this who I am? Is this how I actually, where does this come from? I don't know. Do I like it? No. And then from there, all
Yeah.
right, it doesn't feel good. Let's work on changing it. I mean,
Yeah.
do you have any like, I mean, because there's a lot of like old school texts and traditions I refer back to. I have a lot of Buddhist texts, but I also love like the Bushido code, for example, on a way to live life. Like, is there
Mhm.
any traditions you fall back on or like,
I mean, I always love Bushido stuff. Stoicism is a
Mhm.
huge one for me. I think that's such a good, solid foundation for things that huge accountability in your own actions and responses and the things you have control over. Like, what do you have control over, and start to take accountability in that, and then move forward. And I mean, if all of us did that, that would completely shift so
Mhm.
much. Like, what can I do about this thing? Not what can I tell someone else to do? What does someone else need to fix? What would change if only they would do this? Like, well, what are you doing? And when you take that into your life and your relationships, um, you really start to understand what pieces you have control over, whether or not they change the outcome. Understand that you can change this thing that you know you should change, that
Mhm.
you know that you're doing repeatedly, and you say, well, I was triggered by this. Well, why were you triggered? Why were you triggered by that? And just because you were triggered, does that mean you need to respond the way that you did? So you're compounding these these situations and making them work. You're making them worse.
Mhm.
So there's only so much you can do about what somebody else is doing, but how you respond, how you react, how we internalize, and that's a hard thing to do because it becomes so automatic.
Yeah.
Like we don't put much thought into it, but that's why it's so important to continually recognize how far it gets away from you before you latch back onto it and say and control it, right? And
Mm.
the more that we do that, the farther away from you it's going to get each time. So maybe the first time it's like 2 days, like, ah, shit. And then it's a day, then it's an hour, then it's before it even comes out.
Mm.
And then
Yep.
then you realize like what was really like, why did I respond that way? Well, back in the day, like this shit used to always happen, and when they do this, it makes me feel like that, and I'm actually responding to that. I'm like, oh yeah, but that's a unending daily minute to minute thing that just doesn't, it's like you can know that all you want, but until you practice it continually and strengthen it continually and understand that there is no end to the progress and the development of these things, just like anything else. When you understand that the process in one thing, you will understand it in everything. And you need to apply that to everything you hope to fix. If I
Mm,
want to fix this, if I want to be better at this, whether it's my diet, my mentality, my skill, uh, my language, whatever the case may be, you have to approach it the same way you approach anything you want to get better at. It's nonstop every day.
yeah.
It's not something you can pick up and put down. It's continuous, and every moment that you have to practice it and develop it, you should take advantage of. And we all have countless moments throughout the day that we have to develop these things, but we try to save them for certain instances, typically when it's too fucking late.
Yeah.
Like in the midst of falling apart, like, ah, shit, I should probably try to work on being better. But the more we can be aware of how many opportunities that we have to get better
Hmm.
and to strengthen ourselves, to be a stronger person, a better person, whatever that may be to you. And from the most minute things to the largest scale things, the more opportunities you have to flex that muscle and to develop and get those reps in, the better you're going to be. And the more you understand that there is no end, there's nowhere to get to because it doesn't stop,
Yeah.
the better. You can't, there's nothing that to be fixed. It's either something to get better or something that's getting worse. So it's an ongoing continuous process, and being aware of that is really the first step, I think, in understanding that. And then it's like, okay, I understand this is unending, and what can I, what do I need to be accountable to? What can
Mm,
I take control over? And just starting from that baseline of everything, particularly on things you're aware of that you need to fix. Um, I think for me, that was an enormous shift in my perspective. And then I just try to always apply that to anything I might be having difficulty with, like you gotta go internal first before you can fix anything externally. You have to fix it, or at least address it internally before we even move forward and go from there.
right. Definitely. You don't got to let the house burn down before fixing the root of the problems and getting to it. I think that's a
Yeah,
big, I think a lot of people wait until, I don't want to say it's too late because maybe it's never too late to start
yeah,
taking accountability, right? But they wait until the whole house is on fire to be like,
yeah,
oh, maybe I should attend to this.
yeah.
You know?
Well, so what I try to remember is it's only going to get worse.
Yeah.
You're not getting any better. You're not getting any younger. You're not getting any healthier, really. Where you're going downhill as you age in so
Mhm.
many ways. So it's not going to get easier if you put this off.
Right.
It's only going to get worse. Those habits are only going to solidify and become almost impossible to get rid of if you the longer you wait, the worse it will get.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
we think, oh, I'm going to wait until this happens or until I get to this place in my life. That ain't that ain't going to happen. It
Hmm.
just it just won't. So what can you do now? There might be a point when you'll have more time, certainly, but what can you do right now? Is there something you can do right now? Probably. Maybe you should probably do it then.
Yeah.
Take
Exactly.
take advantage of what you have in this moment in time, because that's all that we have anyway.
Definitely. Well, it's like the story of Sisyphus pushing up the boulder, right? I mean, if he did shit, I'm gonna let it roll down the hill a little bit further first before I start pushing it back up, you know? No, no, you got to go up the mountain anyways, and you're already
Yeah.
further up than you would be. So,
Yeah.
Why
Keep
not just
going.
start now? It's not going to be easy, but you want to really push you want to push them out it that much further up? Like, I don't know. It doesn't sound appealing to me. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
man. Right on, brother. So we're at I don't know. I don't even know what time we started, but I know we're a little over an hour, probably hour and a half. Any
All right.
what's you got any what's the rest of the year looking like for you? Anything exciting coming up? Any new plans, any new
Um,
projects, any new
yeah, I got a jiu-jitsu tournament in a week and a half that I've
Oh, right
been
on.
training really hard for. I Jiu-jitsu was something I dabbled in over the years,
Yeah.
just really just for like a couple days here and there. And in between fights and stuff, I would mess around with some of the guys that were doing MMA and
Hmm.
just for something to do other than what I did daily.
Yeah.
Just I need a break from the constant monotony of training, but I still need to be physically active. So, I'd go mess around with them, just get beat up by a bunch of really good guys. And that was really my only um the only learning I ever did was through having it to just getting my ass kicked basically.
Yeah.
I had never even taken a class before until I came up here. And then when I came up here and after I retired, particularly 6 months ago, I got vertigo really bad and I decided to stop getting hit in the head
Mm.
after that. For a lot of reasons, but I figured 20 years of getting my head smashed in was probably pushing it.
Fair. Yep.
So yeah, I was like, maybe we shouldn't do that anymore. And but I still want to be not only athletic but competitive to a degree, because I loved sparring, man. Just the I loved the game of it,
Hmm.
like trading techniques with people, figuring things out, the puzzle solving that is combat. It's a game essentially. What you're doing, like when I do this, you do this. When I do this, you do that, and then and like trying to combine those things and push people and direct things. It's all this physical as well as psychological manipulation and game of control and give and take and
Hmm.
I love it. I just love it so much. I mean, I would spar every day if I could do it in a healthy way,
Right.
because it really is. And then, it's like, yeah, you could do it for fun where you're just kind of play sparring, but there's not that element of danger
Hmm.
that adds those extra pieces that you don't get from just playing around.
Yeah.
So and everybody out here is really great on the ground, just terrible, terrible, terrible stand up. So so I got really amazing, like high level black, brown, purple belts to train with. And one of my coaches or one of the guys I train, he's one of the jits coaches, and we started just trading lessons. So
Mm.
we work out for like 2 hours in the morning. Like I'll do an hour stand up with him, and then we'll roll for an hour. And then yeah, like 6 months ago, I just really started focusing on getting better, and it was one of my goals this year to do a competition.
Nice.
And so yeah, this is it. And then how far I take it. I mean, it's certainly something I'm going to do for as long as I can. I mean, that's one good thing about jujitsu is you can do it really, really late in life
Yeah.
as long as you stay healthy and there's super good older, much older people, obviously. So it is something that I will continue to do because I can, and it's something I can push myself in. How much I do push myself in to be competitive and to go to that aspect of it, I don't know. I just know that I wanted to do one this year. I'm actually going to do one in Idaho as well 3 weeks later.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I'm sure, like most things, I'm going to be addicted to it and want to get better. But yeah, no, it's also at this stage in life, in order to push yourself in something competitively, you have to sacrifice a lot.
Yeah.
And how much am I willing to sacrifice at this point in order to pursue that and to push that? I don't know.
Right.
Certainly enough to keep developing and training, but as far as competition goes, that's a whole nother aspect. So kind of
Right.
kind of see what happens.
That's fair.
I got a lot of animals I got to take care of. I can't be living in the gym like I used to.
That's fair. As much as you may want to, I
Or
get.
I'm not, I would say I'm not willing to live in the gym anymore.
Yeah.
I put my time in and, as if I would have found this 20 years ago, maybe. But now it's one of those things where you can still be competitive and not have to be this psycho in the gym 24 hours a day.
Right.
You can still be extremely competitive at it without doing that. So basically right now I'm just trying to find what that balance looks like for me,
Nice.
where I can do both, and I'm holding myself accountable to not just half-assing it. Like
That's
if I'm gonna do it, I want to do it, and go from there.
I love it, man. Hey, good luck at the competition. I remember, I think it was the first podcast I ever had you on. You told the story about your first professional fight, or I don't even
Yeah.
know if it was first professional fight or one of your first fights got your
Uh,
ass totally whooped. So hopefully
that
that
was my
doesn't, I hope that's not a repeating cycle, not to even put that in
well,
your mind, but
I actually did. I did a competition like 15 years ago.
oh yeah.
I'd only rolled for like a month, I think. I actually did really well.
Oh,
Um, so this will be my second, but
okay.
it's been 15 years, and now I'm actually seriously training. Where before I hadn't even done like anything.
Yeah.
It was just like I'm gonna go see what this is all about.
I fuck with it, man. I was gonna
Yeah,
say that'll be good. I mean, even if you go in and I think you just, I don't know, you match up with somebody who wipes the floor with you, I know you have the right mindset to where, if
yeah,
anything, that's just gonna fuel it more,
yeah.
So
That might be a problem. Might be a bad thing if I do really poorly.
fuel it more. Like, okay, I gotta train.
Yeah,
And but
yeah.
awesome, man. Well,
Yeah.
excited for you. I'll definitely have
Thank
to
you
hear how it goes, and
for sure.
we'll plan on doing another. The world is always changing, so there's always more to talk
Yeah,
about. We'll plan on doing
there's
another podcast soon. Just
plenty. I'm sure next month there's going to be a lot to talk about.
oh, literally, what is it? Today's Tuesday, isn't it? 2 weeks from today, we got there's the big
Yeah,
old election, so.
good
Like
times.
I'm very much looking forward to getting past the election cycle, regardless of whatever the outcome is. It'll be nice to not have the
Yeah.
constant election advertisements popping up on my
Oh, yeah.
meditation music on YouTube. Like, like, come on, I don't need that. You know?
Yeah, that can be frustrating. Like, all right, we're here now, so
Mhm.
now what?
Exactly. Let's get it over with. But right on, brother. I'll have this out soon, and
Cool.
I'll send it on over to you once I get it out there. But we'll go from there. We'll be chatting.
Sounds good, man. Thanks for having me on.
I appreciate it, bro. Always a pleasure, man.
Yeah, good to talk to you, brother.
All right, you too, dude.
All right.
See ya. Special thank you to Kevin for coming on the Fifth Dimension. This won't be the last time he's on here. Him and I always, I mean, even today, could have just kept going, kept going, because there's so much to explore. So shout out to Kevin, and be sure to check out his own website. He's got some products up for sale. He's got merchandise. He's got a book. He's done a lot. Check out other podcasts he has been on, and hit him up on Instagram, social media, whatever it may be. Really a remarkable dude, and somebody I'm blessed to be able to call a friend. And you know, the future is bright, in my opinion, because there is a lot of people like Kevin out there doing the work, grinding, working on themselves daily. And so I think we're heading in the right direction as a collective, even if it don't always feel like it. So if you're a fan of the show, be sure to subscribe, whatever platform you are on. Be sure to purchase a copy of my new book, The Final Judgment, or my other books, To Martial Love Against Tyranny, The Mystical Collection. Haven't heard that one in a while. Those are all still available. So a great way to support the show. And head on over to Substack, mcdermott.substack.com. And you can also book a tarot reading with me. The links to do so are in the episode show notes below. It's going to wrap up this episode, and I will see you all next time. So long.